welcome back on my channel. I'm always Stefania from Italy, and today I'm here to talk to you and with you about something that I really care of. I am going to share another video in which you will see my grandmother's morning routine, and I am going to explain before publishing this other video how she was living, how my family was living in the 1950s in the southern part of Italy, and what kind of condition was common in the southern part of Italy during the time of the economy uplifting and boom of our economy. Maybe you will hear Chiamo, my cat, in the background because he's outside of the room and he'd like to come inside. So in this video you are going to watch me recreating my mother's routine. I am recreating this routine because my grandmother, named Rosa, her full name was Rosa Maria, has been the only grandmother that I've known and met in my life. So I have a lot of rememberings and notions about her and not about my father's mother. So I'm recreating her routine, but where she was living with her family, with my mother, with my uncle, with my grandfather. They were living in Basilicata, that is a part, a region of Italy that is in the south. And in 1950 is estimated that Basilicata was the most poor region of our country. So, for example, in 1 year, people were at medium. In 1 year, the wage was about 3,000 euros per year. They were very poor, and so as you can imagine, life was not so glamorous and not so easy as it was in other parts of Italy and in other countries. I'm recording this video because in Italy and all around the world, I think, we have this image of 1950s as a glamorous part of history, with a lot of beautiful women, with beautiful dresses, skirts. But this image that we have, for example, in Italy is based on the United States of America. In Europe and in Italy, in this case, the situation was very different. Families were very poor. A lot of women had lost their husbands, or maybe husbands went abroad to work and came back 10 years later. So they didn't have a lot of things. They didn't have a lot of belongings. They didn't have, for example, the habit to wear makeup because it was expensive and so on. So I'd like to share with you these notions because in my video you will see my recreation of my grandmother's routine, and maybe I won't have the possibility to explain a lot about the background and everything. So they were living there. My grandmother was married and they had 2 children at that time, my mother and my uncle. They were living in a very poor place that is, we can say that was a manger okay, like a manger, a very poor place without electricity, without running water, without heating. So it was a very poor place, and my grandmother and grandfather hadn't a lot of knowledge about the world. They hadn't studied a lot. They finished the second grade and stopped to go to school. It was very common in southern Italy and in Italy all around in that time, because schools weren't so important for a lot of family. You had to work to maintain your family, to help financially your family, so it was very common. And also they lived in a poor environment for a lot of time. My grandfather, for example, was a farm worker, and every morning he was going into the big square of the city of Melfi. If you have the possibility, please visit this city because it's very beautiful, it's medieval, it's very beautiful, has a big castle and a lot of little places to take a look, a lot of little tradition. Is very, very beautiful. And he went to this square, and he waited to be called to go to work in farms, and to just do every day something to earn a little bit of money. Maybe sometimes he didn't work for a week, for 2 weeks, because, for example, there wasn't the possibility to work in fields because it wasn't season and so on. So you can imagine everything. My grandmother was a stay-at-home mother. She was a housewife. I know because I'm doing some researches and I'm asking to a lot of people to contribute to my research, that in the central part and the northern part of Italy, a lot of women had the possibility to study more and to work out of home. They were working, they were doing a lot of very hard things, for example, working to produce rice in north part of Italy, into the factories, to help the factories because there weren't a lot of men to work and to produce things after the Second World War. So the situation in Italy, even nowadays, is very different from north, center and south. We can say that we have two different speeds of development and so on. So this is a situation that still nowadays is the same. I am not doing I'm not saying that everything is like as I'm saying. Of course, I'm not an expert. And I'd like to say that even in the south of Italy, there were situations in which women had the possibility to work, to study. So I'm not telling that everything was as I'm saying for my family, but I'm trying to represent the situation of Italy for women in the 1950s. But the most important thing for me is not only to represent the situation of women, of families in the south part of Italy in that time, but it is also to try to talk about how much our ancestors did for us, did for their families. They worked hard, they built houses, they built a lot of things. So I'm very grateful, and we have to remember that, because a lot of families started from zero and became big families with homes, with very beautiful belongings and so on. So this is the most important thing. And in my morning routine, vintage morning routine, you will see myself as my grandmother, doing the things in my house, trying to represent what she was doing when she was at home, but also trying to show you that life was still beautiful, even if you were poor, because they have families, they have love, they have a lot of not material things to be grateful. Another thing that has been very difficult for my mother's family has been my grandmother's sickness, because for almost 6 years she stayed in a sanatorium because she had tuberculosis. So my grandfather had to help my mother and my uncle to grow up, and he was working. There were my great grandmother that was helping my grandfather to raise these children, but as you can represent, it wasn't easy. The most for men in that period of time, without knowledge, without experience with children. So I'm very grateful for my family, and I can say that my grandparents, my mother's parents, have always been my example, my inspiration, and I'm always remembering them even after their death, because they show me that there's always hope, there's always something that you can do to become better, to achieve something. Because my grandfather, after living in this manger, I don't know how to pronunciate it, bought the house that is still there, in which I stayed when I went back to Melfi in 2019, and after they moved in Turin, in which I am living nowadays, to become richer, I can say. He had the opportunity to work in a factory. My mother, for example, had the opportunity to start working, my uncle to study, and so on. So in Italy we had this phenomenon in the most part of families of the south part of Italy, and we must remember that, because our ancestors have been our roots and the strength of our country in this very poor period of time. So please try to consider that Italy has not been like other countries, not like the United States, and in a lot of European countries the Second World War has been a very difficult time, because a lot of cities have been destroyed. Turin has been destroyed, London, and so on, Krakow. A lot of cities in Europe have been destroyed, and so we had to do that and start to work from the beginning, and this is a very important thing. So I hope that you will watch my other video with my vintage morning routine and you will appreciate it. Of course, I hope that you will give a thumb up and maybe subscribe to my channel. I hope that you will maybe think about more about Europe, about people that were poor during this period of time, and about what they did to make us here nowadays. So I hug you, I thank you, and I hope that you will watch my other video. For the moment, see you soon. Bye!